Jasmine Jones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and you are now watching Black Girl, a Therapist in the Wild. And this is a little series I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. And today we are sipping on orange juice and vodka, college treat, and we are reviewing Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 4, History of Violence. And as you can see, I have a new hairdo. I'm trying something different. I got some Chebe hair cream that the Chattian women use to make their hair grow longer. So I'm going to let that sit and marinate in a little twist underneath this here wig and see what happens. And yeah, just enjoy something different, a little wig, see what goes on with this. But yeah, so this episode was giving me some Indiana Jones tease, some, old-timey Twilight Zone feels, and surprise, James and the Giant Peach stuff going on. So I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It was some twists and turns. Let's start. So we start off this episode with Montrose. He is going through all the PTSD things, flashbacks, memories of his brother dying, intrusive memories of his dad beating him, hearing the things happening again in his head, probably seeing them happening again, roaming around his apartment, not knowing what to do. Comes across the Book of the Golden Dawn. That's the book that George stole from the lodge folks. And he is looking at the book. There's an inscription on it. I like to read the little inscriptions that they have in the show. So let's go ahead and do that. There's an inscription in the book, and it says, Adam named, Eve fucked, God brought forth monsters, monsters devoured, God spites Eve? I think it was spites Eve. I don't know, or smites, not spites, smites Eve. There you go. So if anyone knows where that's from, I haven't looked it up yet. I just went straight into the review. Let me know. So he's looking at the inscription, and then he goes and he burns the book. And as he's burning the book, he says, "Smells like Tulsa." So we've kind of solidified that anything that has to do with white people or hurting his family, Montrose is not for. He doesn't want to be involved in it. So he's burning the book. And before he burns the book, he hears George's voice in his head reminding him that he's all Tick has. And I think in his warped kind of I've been through shit brain, this is his idea of protecting Tick, is to burn the book and never let Tick be involved in any of the wizardry and witchcraft and Harry Potter shit with a dash of racism, more than a dash, instead of the transphobia that let me stop. Okay, so he doesn't want to be involved in any of that shit, so he burns the book, says smells like Tulsa, referencing the Tulsa fires that white people did on Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Got the year, I don't remember it, but yes, I feel like that's just kind of reminiscent of him reminding himself what white people do. And that's why he's burning this book, so that he doesn't have his son be involved, because he's the only one his son has. When we have trauma, we go to extremes when it comes to protecting our loved ones from re-experiencing the trauma, especially if we're living in fear for most of our lives. I've had clients who felt really bad about themselves because of the way that their parents treated them, but then they kind of go back and rethink about it, and they realize my parent has been through stuff. That's why they, wouldn't let me talk to boys, or they acted very extreme about when I would be around white people or do white people things and stuff like that, because they've been through things and they're living in fear, and they're putting that fear on me, and they're going to the extreme when trying to protect me. So then you have to kind of reconstruct how you felt about yourself your whole life based off of what your parent told you, and uninternalize all that shit. Be like, oh no, I'm not, there's nothing actually wrong with me. It's my mom or dad or whoever was our caregiver that, had issues and put their issues on me, and I internalized it. So yeah, Next, we go to Christina. Her name's Christina. I said Catherine in the last video. I called Montrose Montavious because I was doing P-Valley and Lovecraft Country on the same day. I will become more professional at this. Do not come for me. This is all new for me. Thank you for pointing it out in a kind way, though, and not being like mean about it. But anyways, we have Christina. She's going to Letty's house in her silver Bentley, and she shows up on Letty's doorstep, and there's like black written in chalk on the ground in front of her home. So I guess the racist residents of the neighborhood just wants to alert everybody to the fact that there's a negress and Negroes living in this here house. And so she comes to her doorstep and she wants to come in. She tries to force her way in like she has that privilege because she's white. And Letty has the sign on the door from the goat that the voodoo lady put on the door as a way to prevent evil from entering the home. And it blocks Christina. And I just did a ha when that happened. Because yes, God, honey, you thought you had the privilege. You don't. And so upon seeing Christina, Letty then realizes, oh, this is the bitch that gave me the money, not my mother who died. So Christina basically is telling Letty that she's looking for Hiram's, I think that's his name, Hiram's papers that he got from the Book of the Dawn, which Adam wrote, Adam from Adam and Eve, and she wants to find those pages, and she thinks Hiram has them somewhere in the home in Titus's vault and stuff, or something like that. Or Titus's vault is somewhere, or they're looking for it. So from what I can guess, it seems like Christina thinks Hiram took some pages and then hid them, and then Titus had some pages and hid them, and so she thinks Hiram has some pages in the house somewhere, and she wants to find it. She also wants to find Hiram's solar thing, the little model thing that shows the movement of the planet. She wants to find that specifically. Letty thinks that, that might be the key to the pages, and then Christina just agrees with her. And so Letty's like, I don't know where it's at. I haven't seen that. I don't know what you're talking about. So Christina wants Hiram's Ori. That's what she called it. It's the model of the planets. And she's also warning Letty that Tig needs to be careful because he threatened to kill her, and he's threatened to kill a white woman in 1950 South, and how would that look for him? And Letty's just like looking at her like, okay. So then we go to Hippolyta. So Hippolyta, you guys really helped me out with that. You were saying that Hippolyta is a Greek goddess. She's the mother of Wonder Woman. So there's some meaning to that name, because I was just kind of like, what is that, like a country name? Where does that come from? So thank you so much. So we go to, I don't know, is that like a garage or a bookstore or both? Because when we first saw George's little area, it looks like a garage with like a little bookstore in front, but it's kind of like, is it both? Is it just that he had his car parked in there and it's actually a bookstore or a travel guide store? Is that what it is? Let me know, because I'm confused about what that actually is, because I see books and I can see car shit. So let me know. Anyways, we go there and we see that Hippolyta has taken Hiram's Ori. So the thing that appeared to her in Letty's home when she was looking for D was the solar system thing. And she took it and put it in George's shop. I guess someone mentioned that it reminded her of George, so she took it. When someone mentioned that, I was kind of thinking, well, George's name appeared on the Ouija board. I mean, did George make that shit appear for her? Let me know. Yes. We also see that D is there in the shop, and so we focus on Hippolyta for a second, because Hippolyta is talking about solar system stuff. She's on the phone with her dad talking about solar system stuff and astrology and how, the sun and how there could be two suns or something like that. And then somebody comes in and starts talking to her about Hiram's Ori, and she said that it's supposed to predict the movement of the planets, but it's not working, so she needs to get it to work. So Dee comes in, and then she goes, she wants to go to Bobo's house to read comic books. So we're bringing up Emmett Till again because Bobo, it was his nickname. So she's going to his house. So I'm kind of curious to see where that goes when he actually is murdered. I feel a type of way that they keep bringing him up because I just feel like I don't want to experience and feel the feelings and but she's going to Bobo's house, and I think that scene was just to make it known that she had Hiram's Ori after Christina came to Letty looking for it. Then we see Letty at the colored library. So we had like a whole library to ourselves. So this makes me question, it's segregation. It was supposed to be the black kids going to better schools and things like that. But did we really have inferior texts and things if we've had our own library and all? So, it just makes me question things. So Letty is meeting Tick there. She's looking for him, and she found him there. And she basically wants to cuss him out because he didn't tell her that Christina paid for her house or gave her the money, and then the house ended up hers because of Christina, and also B, that he tried to kill Christina, and she was just like, so why didn't you kill her? And he was just like, she has some spell on her that keeps me from killing her. I tried to shoot her and it wouldn't do it. And so Letty's just like, okay, he's sitting there trying to research the Golden Dawn people or whatever their names are. And, she sees his army bag and she sees that he was about to leave. And he says, well, I'm not going to leave until, your family's safe. So he wants to make sure everybody's safe before he goes back to Florida. That's his goal. So Letty, and it's so cute. There's this kid in there that is just so mad that they're talking so loud, and he's just so frustrated and upset. He gets up and leaves, and then when he comes back, he shushes them. It's so cute. He has these little glasses on. Anyway, she sees him there with all these books on the table, and she goes, well, how do you know your dad hasn't researched all this when he was looking for your mom and trying to find her people? And he doesn't want to get his dad involved whatsoever. He doesn't want his dad to, get angry and be negative and try to shut everything down and all this other stuff. So Letty just kind of walks out, and then when she walks out, Tick looks at the books and sees that his dad, because when you used to check books out at the library, children, back in the day, there was this little library slip that was in the book, and you wrote your name on it to check it out and then give it back or whatever. Now we have cards and it's in a system and all this other shit. So he sees that his dad's name is on the library checkout slip of every book he's looking at, basically. And he's just sitting there staring. So he's staring at the books, and he's realizing that Letty is right. His dad does probably know more than he knows because he checked out all the books that he's read. So we go to the next scene, and he's at the bar looking for his dad. And his dad is there in the back with Letty. So Letty had already tracked him down. And basically Letty wanted to ask him for help. And Montrose is like, no, I'm not trying to help you. Why do you want to get involved with these racist wizards and all sorts of random shit and all this other stuff? And Montrose is like, see, Letty, I told you he wasn't going to help me, and da-da-da. And then he gets up and walks away. And Letty just looks at Montrose and is like, you ain't shit. Why are you going to let Tick chase his tail for answers that you already know? All this other stuff. And then finally Montrose is like, do you have people in Boston? I think I know where the vault is. And it was interesting that he asked her if she had people there, I guess, as far as having a place to stay. So back in the day, we were more of a community. So when we traveled, when we went places, we would stay at each other's homes, even if you knew the people or you didn't know the people, because people were out here murdering us and shit. And so we couldn't just be at hotels and things like that. You would probably end up dead if you were at a motel, whatever, Holiday Inn. And so it was interesting that he asked her that first, because it was like, yeah, that's like a nod to history and black survival. Yes. I hope one day we could be more of a community again. not necessarily staying in people. I like my space. But just in various other ways of being a community and all that other good shit. So there you go. We then go to Christina. She's randomly playing hide and seek with these little white kids in the neighborhood. I guess this is to let us know that she has a goofy streak and she's like a regular person and whatever the fuck and whatever. I don't trust that bitch, but whatever. And the police come and get her and take her to the lodge that they have in Chicago. Apparently there's a lodge there, and the leader of the lodge is the white police officer that arrested Letty that was killing black folks with Hiram. And she goes into his office. There's somebody in the back room moaning. So apparently they're probably still killing black people. Because she just looks through the slits of this door in his office, and there's someone in there just moaning and groaning and all sorts of bullshit. So I'm assuming that the killing and murdering and slaying of black people are still, the experimentations on black people are still happening, and that's like a I don't want to call it a myth. It's more so like a story that goes amongst black folks that's what happens, the disappearance of black children and black people, and there's no big police-wide search for them or anything like that. There's still a feeling amongst the black community that this happens, that people are stealing black children and adults to steal their organs and things like that and sell them on the black market or whatever. So there's still a fear. So to put it in a show and actually show that this fear has been going on for a long time and that we have been experimented on and tested on. I mean, look at what is the Tuskegee, folks, and the Tuskegee trials. They were testing syphilis and giving black people syphilis and testing their responses and medications and all sorts of shit on them. Like, it's happened over and over again in history. In slavery times, there were like racist doctors that owned slaves. I don't know why I did this. They were racist. Then they were doing experimentations on them. I mean, they just tried to tear a statue down of a famous doctor that I guess he was the father of gynecology and shit, and come to find out he was doing most of his tests on black women and his slaves and torturing them and shit like that, and they want to tear his statue down. So it's just it's horrible. It's horrible. So she's in the lodge, the Chicago lodge, and she's so the captain's mad. He's like, what are you doing unannounced in my territory and all sorts of other shit. And she's like, I was trying to find Hiram's journal pages. I thought he would give them to me. Come to my surprise, there's Negroes living at that house. Did you know about that? And things like that, because he said that the house belonged to the lodge officially. And she's like, well, there's Negroes living there. So she's acting dumb. And then, she starts talking about Hiram's Ori, and she says that she wanted Hiram to give her that. And basically Hiram's Ori is the key to his time machine, so to move through time. So that might explain Hippolyta, like the scenes in the series preview where she's like it looked like ancient Egypt and shit like that. So maybe she actually accessed that and was able to go back in time. Who knows? Next we go back to George's store, and Letty and Tig and Montrose are packing the car to get ready to go to Boston because they're going to go to the museum, the Natural History Museum or whatever. Because Titus apparently has a wing in the Natural History Museum full of artifacts from Native Americans that he tried to befriend. Evil motherfucker. And so they think that the vault is there. From Montrose studies and things, he thinks that the vault is there. So they're packing up the car, and then Hippolyta shows up. She's going to go with them. And as they're pulling out, the dude from the bar that we first saw when Tick was looking for his dad, I forgot his name, but he used to go to school with Letty and Tick. He wants a ride to Boston to see his girl. So he wants a ride. I think he said he's going to see his girl in Philadelphia, I guess. it skips a good portion of the trip if he goes with them to Boston and then to Philadelphia. I don't know. I'm not from the East Coast. I don't know how far Boston is from Philadelphia. Oh. But anyways, they look at each other and they look at him, they look at each other, and then he goes with him. I don't trust him. I feel like he just pops up randomly out of nowhere. I feel like he's a snake and he might do something. Because I don't like people that just pop up randomly when we're not involving ourselves with you and we don't know why you're here. Maybe he's not, but because I would say he's comic relief if he didn't intrude on Tick's relationship with his family and provide information that has Tick questioning shit, then I'll be like, oh, maybe he's comic relief or some shit, no, you know a lot and things. So Hippolyta agrees, once again, it's black people, community, working together to travel, to get to places, to have places to stay when they get there and all this other stuff, to be safe. Black people keeping other black folks safe. And I think that's kind of cool that we did that at one point. We cared enough about each other to do things like that at one point. It was a beautiful time, at least in that section of racism and struggle and murder. We cared about each other, and I feel like, does it have to be that bad for us to care about each other like that again, or like, can we just do it just cause? I don't know. I just asking. Now we're in Boston. We're at the museum. Dee and Hippolyta go off to look at the planetarium and do things and look at stuff, and then we have Letty, Tick, Montrose, and the dude from high school, and he wants to follow them and go with them as they go around looking for this entrance into the vault where the book of names pages are. And he doesn't know about any of this stuff. He just wants to walk around with him for a little bit until he has to go. They have 3 hours. So he's like, they walk off, Tick and Montrose walk off, and then Letty and him are standing there, and he's talking to Letty like, they call me 3 legs, and she's like, oh my gosh, why do they call you 3 legs? And again he goes, oh, because I have 3 legs and some shit. I don't fucking know what he said. It was stupid. And he was like, didn't you know? And she was like, shouldn't I have known that if we had sex? So apparently when they were at the housewarming party, he had told Tick that he was interested in Letty and they had sex before and all this other stuff. So apparently Tick told Letty that he said that. And so he's standing there looking like, oh shit, I'm never gonna have a chance with her. Stupid thinking. Letty walks off, and then we go to Dee and Hippolyta in the planetarium. They're laying on the floor looking up at the stars, and I'm just like, they just letting everybody into the museum, and not that much segregation or racism and stuff. Like, they could lay on the little mats, and there were little white children, little black children in the room, and they could touch stuff, and nobody was coming for them. I just feel like, wow, this is interesting. Like, were they very open at the museum, in those times? Like, let me know. But anyways, they're looking up at the stars, and Hippolyta is telling Dee about how she named the comet Hera. It was Hera something, I forgot, but she named it, and it was for a competition. And she was saying that, Dee was like, well, I never heard of that. Why haven't I heard of that? And Hippolyta is like, well, they didn't want a little black girl to be the face of the contest. So they gave it to this little white girl, but she got to name it. It's fucked up. So Dee does this cutest thing. She gets up and she says, my mom named that comet. And she was like, see, now everybody in here knows that you named that comet. And then, it's beautiful. Just the little things. It made Hippolyta happy. So then we go to Titus, Tick, and Letty. I guess the other guy disappeared, went to find his girl in Philadelphia or whatever. So they're looking around the museum trying to find, the entrance to the vault. So they feel like the entrance to the vault is in there, in the wing that belonged to Titus Braithwaite. And so they're in the wing, and the tour guide in the wing is talking about how Titus went and explored the world and brought back these artifacts from savages. And, he made friends with the savages. And as soon as I heard that, I mean, I already thought he was the evil person, but I was like, those poor Native Americans. God bless the Native Americans. Just come through and destroy a people. Like in various, how can one people destroy people and cultures all over the world? It's like a virus. Okay, let me stop. Let me get back on track. So they're looking for the entrance. And then Tick sees the statue, or one of them, Montrose or Tick, sees it, and they think that the entrance is in the statue. The guy is still there. Okay, so he's following Tick around, and then he mentions to Tick that, he was like, why are you still mad? Are you still mad at me or whatever? And Tick's like, no, I'm not mad at you. And he was like, I think you're mad at me because I sent you back there when old dude, when he was looking for his dad, and he sent him back there when old dude was getting a blowjob. And he was like, I think you're mad at me because I sent you back there when old dude was with that man. And Tick's like, no, I mean, he can do what he want to do. I don't give a fuck. And dude's like, I thought that you would be interested in that. And Tick's like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to say the word because that's what they used to call gay people back then, but it's not right. And he said, no, I'm not that. And he's like, well, I didn't think you were that. It's more so that him and your dad were hanging out a lot. And so he just kind of left Tick with that on his mind, like, your dad might be gay or some shit, blah, 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 and stupid shit. So, Tick is marinating with that, and then they see the statue and feel like the statue is the entrance to the thing. He sees his dad talking to the security guard, so the security guard is going to let them in later on after closing. They have 2 hours to look for what they want to look for and get the fuck out and not touch any of the artifacts. And so his dad comes over and lets him know that the security guard is going to let them in. And Tick's just looking at him like, how do you know that, man? And he's like, well, he's just a friend from the bar, or whatever. And so Tick's just like, oh, okay. And so we go to, I think her name's Rose, Letty's sister, and she's at Marshall Field trying to get a job again. And she goes in there to turn in her resume. She looks cute, sharp, had a nice little skirt suit on, all this other shit. She goes in there and she sees this little skinny black girl at the counter that has been hired for the job. Skinny black girl comes over to her and starts asking her like, hey, can I help you and shit like that. And she's like, no, I'm just looking. So she's just totally defeated. She's not even gonna ask for a job now. And then she asks, are you new here? When did you get the job? And the little black girl says, oh yeah, I just did it on a whim. I came in, I turned in my application, and they accepted me. And so she just feels defeated after that. You can see her face fall and all this other shit. And I think that I don't know. Like, so was it that she had been trying to apply again and again and they didn't accept her? Or was it that she wanted to apply, but she was scared? So I'm not sure, because how she was talking later on, it sounded like she wanted to apply and she wasn't scared. But then how she had been talking and how other people had been talking in other episodes, it sounded like she had applied over and over and they didn't accept her. So let me know. Also, we have a scene where, so apparently the police are following Christina, so the captain is sending his people to keep an eye on her. And apparently she goes to her house, she goes inside, she has a house in Chicago's fancy little mansion or whatever. And William is there, the guy that was in the house when they first went to the magical town or whatever. And he sees the people following her and he beats the shit out of them, and he's like, oh no, you don't follow Miss Braithwaite, she doesn't like to be followed. And he says, I have a date, and he walks off. Now we go to the good part. And so we have Tick, Montrose, and Letty. They're at the museum after hours. They're at the statue. They're trying to figure out how to open the door on the statue, because Tick is sure that there's a door on the statue. And then Montrose looks up at the ceiling, and then he tells them to turn their flashlights off. So I didn't understand why he was telling them to turn their flashlights off, but then they turn their flashlights off, and then the moon comes in and hits the statue in a certain way, and then hits the map that's on the wall. There's a map map on the wall that's supposed to be an artifact from Titus, and the moon hit the statue where the latch is to open the door. And I was just sitting there like, so wouldn't someone else have seen that? Or, you know, over all of these years? Or, you know, doesn't the security guard do patrols for that type of shit, you know? So, but then I was like, well, maybe it's because Tick has the blood of Titus in him, and that's why, because he's there, you know, it did that. The moon hit the thing, and then it hit the thing, and then you know. So anyways, they flip the latch, they go down, and then Tig, there's 3 tunnels. And at the top it says something about danger on these paths and beware of the rising tide and all sorts of dumb shit. And so Tig doesn't know which tunnel to go down. And then he says he needs the map on the wall. That's the artifact. So Letty breaks the glass and comes down with Tig. Like, she's just rushing. She just wants to find out all this shit. Now, you can tell, like, she wants answers to why she had to die, basically. And she don't give a fuck about what Tick gotta say or nobody else. She wants answers to all this shit because she had to die and she didn't want her death to have been in vain. So anyways, Montrose is feeling some type of way because he told the security guard that he wouldn't touch shit. But, you know, he touched shit. So they go down the tunnel, and then, you know, Montrose's like flashlight goes out or some shit. So they're just going down this tunnel. So they go down this tunnel. They go down this tunnel based off of, I don't know, that they were putting together when Titus went to Colombia and when he pillaged and raped people, and how the tunnel has something to do with that or some shit. And that's the tunnel to go down. And Tick is looking at the tunnel where the lamp is gone. Every other tunnel has a lamp, but this tunnel, one tunnel doesn't have a lamp. At least I didn't see a lamp, and I think that's why he stopped them and were like, are you sure that's the right tunnel? And they were just like, well, we can double back and check if it's not. And so yeah. Then we go to the club where Rose is. Rose is singing. That's Letty's sister. And she's singing about, you know, heartache and pain and black trauma and all sorts of dumb shit that we shouldn't have to go through. And then she gets up. Nobody claps for her. She's like, fuck y'all. Sits down at the bar. And the bartender has a drink for her. And she's like, I don't have no money for this. And he's like, old Blue Eyes down there bought you a drink. And so she looks down. It's William. Of course, it's William. He has some ulterior motives or whatever the fuck for meeting with Rose, obviously. But he meets with her. And, you know, she's trying to play like she don't like none of this shit. And fuck this motherfucker. And he just up here wanting me to, you know, want some black booty, want me to pretend to be something and all sorts of other stuff. And trying to put on a defensive for, you know, whatever he's trying to do. Says to her, I want to offer you something that you won't forget. And she's like, what do you want to offer me, nigga? What do you want? So then we go back to the tunnel, and they're walking down the tunnel. They get to, so Montrose flashlight goes out. They get to the end of the tunnel. There's this long ass plank, just a plank of wood going off into the distance, into the darkness. Underneath it is just, you know, nothing. There's no ground. It's just fall down all the way down to wherever. And apparently they decide that they have to cross this plank. I mean, I feel like, Tick, you saw another tunnel to go down. Like, y'all could have went back. It only took you 20 minutes. It'd take 20 minutes. You could have, whatever. So they all decided to go across the plank, and they're tying ropes around themselves. He's tying a rope around Letty. She's anxious. He's telling her it's a special knot, that she won't die because it's special. Montrose is going into some spiel about how this is his great ancestors, you know, knot, and he had to tie the horses as a slave, and if the horses got away, he would have got beaten. And so he had to make sure this knot works. So because it's his great ancestors knot that saved him and all this other stuff. But basically it's a lie to get her to go across the plank. And, you know, he's like, you know, when she's walking across the plank, Tick's like, Freemans were never slaves. And he's like, well, she's going across the plank though, ain't she? So she's going across the plank. Scared as fuck, trips a few times, all this other stuff. And all of a sudden there's this whoosh coming across the ceiling. I thought something was flying. She thought something was flying. Tick goes to get her. And in order for them to get across, it's like Indiana Jones. So we're coming in with the Indiana Jones music here. Earlier when we were in the museum, we were having the Twilight Zone music. Now we're in Indiana Jones land right now. So there's this whooshing giant axe going across, and basically what happens next is that he has to untie Letty so that she can, just like on Super Mario, jump at the right time to miss the axe. So he unties her, and she's freaking out. She's like, this is a special knot, and you untied the special knot. And then she jumps across, and she makes it. And then all of a sudden, the plank starts to disintegrate on the other end. So Montrose sees this, and he's freaking out. And he's like, the plank is disintegrating, and da-da-da. So Tig runs back to him, and first he has him throw him his bag. The bag falls into the abyss of no return and shit. And then here comes Montrose. He's like, you better catch me, da-da-da. And so he jumps across. Tig catches him, and then they get across this plank. And I'm just like, this plank is a sturdy ass 100-something-year-old plank. That's a sturdy plank, because they look old and ugly and rusted, but it's it's a magic plank. Magic plank. So they get across, and then they get to this door, and the plank's disintegrating as they're getting across. So they get to this door, and the door has like a code to it. You have to figure out the code. So Montrose is like, Adam and Eve, try Eve, try Garden of Eden. And so they try Eve, and then that makes the door open. So then they get into the other hallway of this, Super Mario, what is it? Raiders of the Lost Ark situation. As they're walking through this new tunnel, there's water in it, like the tide is rising. I just feel like if they opened the door, shouldn't some of that water have came out as they were, what? There's gonna be plot holes everywhere. And it just is what I just feel like some of that water, not all of it, maybe the door didn't stay open, but like a good portion of it should have dripped. Let me stop. Let me. It's the vodka. So then we go to Rose at the bar, and William, she's talking about, I'm not gonna take you home and blah blah blah. So basically they get back to Letty's house. So William got in the house. Because he's working for Christina or with Christina or whatever the fuck. So this is all a game, but whatever. So they end up fucking on the stairs, which looks interesting. The stairs, the whole situation, it looked interesting. Something to just clock away in my little brain. And fucking on the stairs, he got like these weird ass scars all over his chest, like decorated scars. They were on purpose for a reason and shit. Scarification. There you fucking go. And they're fucking on the stairs, and they had the sex. And earlier, before they left the bar, Letty was just talking about like what she thought about Marshall Fields and things like that. And she was saying that even though they hired that one black girl, she feels like they're not going to hire 2 black women or 2 black people to work at that store. So she's just defeated about the whole thing at this point, and doesn't even want to try. He's telling her like, you need to believe in yourself and da 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 da, you can do it, girl. And she's like, no, I can't, nigga. And then they go off and fuck at her house, at Letty's house. But it's her house because Letty should have gave her half that money. I said what I said, because when you thought it was your mama's, you should have gave her some. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, we go back to the tunnel. Tig is feeling some type of way about Montrose knowing the answers to all this stuff. So he's like, why do you know the combination? Why do you know this, that, and the other about the Golden Dawn and shit like that? I'm getting this confused with Black Clover. I think it's the Golden Dawn is the thing on Black Clover. The Order of the Dawn, Adam's Dawn, whatever the fuck Dawn. Montrose is telling him about the book that George left and how he burned it and how he was trying to protect them and da-da-da-da and all this other dumb shit. So, they're going through the tunnel, and all of a sudden the water's rising. So they got like about an hour before the tide rises up and they can't breathe and shit like that. Then they get to a familiar elevator. They are back underneath Letty's house. This is the tunnel that we saw in the last episode with all the dead bodies in it. How Letty knew was that first she saw her neighbor who was dead and he was floating in the water. So they see the elevator. Tick's like, you two should get in the elevator and I'm gonna go on and figure this shit out. And Letty's like, the fuck you are, nigga? This is my life. I died. I need to figure this out. This is not just about you. What are you talking about? And she calls him selfish, which mental health can make us selfish and make us only focus on ourselves. And I have to be the sacrifice. I'm the horrible person. I'm the burden. I'm this. I'm that. And you're not even recognizing that other people have feelings and emotions and intentions and do things for their own reasons too, and you're not the only one who has a stake in this claim. So sir, shut the fuck up. So Montrose and Letty go with him. They get to the end of the tunnel and there's this door, this locked door with an arm hanging out. So whatchamacallit, Tick puts his arm in the door and it sucks out his blood and recognizes what's his name, Titus's blood, and then the roof opens up, a ladder falls down. They climb up the ladder and go into like this, it looked like a dining room, but then we find out it's a ship. There's a bunch of dead native people in it. One lady's holding a baby, all this other stuff. And then we see this dead person, a seemingly dead person, laying across this desk at the top with a roll of papers in their hands. And this whole scene made me think of James and the Giant Peach when they went down into the pirate ship underneath the ice. I think they were I forgot what they were trying to get, but I think it was the steering wheel from the ship so they could steer the birds that were flying the peach. Yes, if you haven't seen this, then just, I'm still going to talk about it, so and then they thought all the people, they were getting a compass because they didn't know which direction they were going to get to New York. And so they go into the captain's office or whatever, sees all the dead skeletons around, sees the captain laying over I think this is from James and the I feel, because the whole thing was James and the Giant Peach, okay, laying over the compass. And they try to take the compass from the skeleton, and the skeleton is holding on to it, so it's playing it, and then all of a sudden the skeleton comes to life with the compass and James and Giant Peach. So that's basically what happened in this scene. Was they went to grab the roll of papers, which is the book, the pages from the Adam's book, and the skeleton just came to life, just started bobbling and filling out, and skin started forming on it and all other shit. And it turns out to be they called themselves Between Two Worlds, a man and a woman coming from another land. I think the name of the person was Yahima Markoti, and they were two spirits in the same body, man and woman. And a lot of tribes, like Native American tribes, believed in like two spirit people and things like that, and people can have men and women in them and all sorts of shit. So, and then black African tribes believed that too. There was some that believed that too. So, I'm just gonna call them they, but then Atticus called her. So maybe, and she didn't look mad about it, so I'm just gonna say she. There you go. So she forms into this person. She's freaking out, and then she starts to tell Atticus about Titus. And basically, Titus was having her translate the book for him. And then she realized that Titus, she basically said she didn't know who he really was until she saw who he really was. And she said she had never seen a people that were so hungry that their appetite was so insatiable, And that's what a sociopath is. Basically, nothing will ever entertain them enough. They need more and more power, more stuff, more entertainment, more everything, and nothing will ever satisfy them because they're not satisfied in themselves. So, and the fact that she said she's never seen a people, going back to what I said earlier, one one group of people just going across the world, destroying cultures and fucking with people, like whatever. And then so basically she refused to translate the book for him anymore, and he got big mad like a little fucking baby and was like, okay, well, fuck you, bitch. And she was just like, I just want to see my people and go home and shit. And cause she's like from this world of 7 lakes or waters or some magical place that she never should have left. Fuck white people. Don't follow these people. Don't do what they say. What do you do? Stay in the magic land, okay? And Atticus can understand her. That hasn't been explained yet why he can understand her. Maybe because he has Titus's blood in him or whatever the fuck. So she said that he brought her people, but he killed them all. So that all the skeletons that were in the dining room area were her people, and he killed them because he's trash. And so then, Montrose is like, well, let's just take the pages and leave. And so Montrose grabs the pages, and that's when the whole ship starts to collapse. So they have to basically swim out of there and get to the elevator. To get to the elevator, somebody drops the pages. I think Montrose dropped them motherfucking pages on purpose. Letty saw, and she got the pages, and they went up in the elevator. And they're back in Letty's house now. Scoot over to Hippolyta and Dee. So somehow they found out that Montrose, Letty, and Atticus got back to Chicago. And Dee is asking, she's like, how did they get back to Chicago before, such and such? And Hippolyta's just like, I don't know. And Dee's just like, everything's been weird since, Dad's died and all this other stuff. So it's like nighttime as they're driving. They're driving back home. And so Hippolyta looks over and she sees Dee has George's atlas where he marks off all the racist places. And so she's like, where'd you get that? Dee's like, it was in the glove compartment. And Hippolyta pulls over and she looks at the atlas, and then she sees the last place that George went, Devens County. And so she basically turns the car and says, she doesn't say it, but we know she's about to go to Devens County and find out what happened. We get back to the house. What's her name? So while they were in the elevator, apparently Titus had made it so that Yamaha couldn't talk after getting out of the room he locked her in. So he made her into a siren. So every time she opened her mouth, she just made this screeching sound. So Atticus had to sock her to get her to shut up. And they're in the room, and Atticus is finding this out from Yamaha, that I want to say Yamaha, it's Yamiha, well, whatever, I'm probably saying it wrong, I apologize. And she's like giving him sign languages and letting him know that Atticus made her into a siren. So he goes out the door and tells his uncle and Letty what she told him, and that, he's hoping to teach her English so she can translate the book and all this other shit. And, he leaves. Letty leaves to let her, let Yamaha sleep and shit. And here comes Montrose, and I'm thinking, what if Montrose and Yamaha got together? That might be a thing and shit. He looking at her and shit, like, and and he comes into the room, walks gently behind her, puts his hand on her shoulder, says, I'm sorry, and slits her fucking throat. I was just like, sir. So either he's a part of some shit that we don't know about yet. This is a part of his I want to protect my family bullshit because he's still trapped in his trauma. Either or, I don't know what killing. And my thing is, can she even die? Like, she's been sitting in some room for like 100 years as a fucking skeleton. Can she even die? Like, she's like a magical creature. Who knows? Maybe she was, sitting there alive because Titus put a spell on her. Maybe she has the magic powers to not die, but either way, I feel like It was fucked up what George did. Not George, what Montrose did. It's fucked up what he did. I don't know where it's coming from, what's going on, but I feel like it's all trash. So anyways, in the next episode previews, we see that there's a conflict between Letty and Montrose, I think. I don't know, because Letty was talking about, he's affecting our heads and all this other shit. So I don't know if there's a conflict or what's going on, but I want to see what happens next when it comes to, like, did Yamaha die? Like, is she alive? Like, do you think that it's Montrose's trauma that's making him live in fear and making him do fuck shit when it comes to this wizard and warlock and racism shit? And then it looks like, Montrose at the very end too also told Atticus that he was proud of him and that his mother would be proud of him. So basically something Atticus probably wanted to hear his whole life and never heard before. So Atticus started crying and felt some type of way. So in the next episode preview, there's a scene where Atticus is just like, well, let's just go along, why are you so against him, and da-da-da. So I'm thinking they're talking about Montrose, and I'm feeling like Atticus is leaning more towards his side because his dad said he loved him and shit. And all this other stuff. So, I don't know. I don't know. Do you think that, Atticus might get too emotionally attached to his dad and be blinded by the fact that, his dad, might be trying to throw, a wrench in everything? Like, or do you think his dad is like doing some underhanded sneaky shit with the lodges and the people from the lodges? Like, or is it just all trauma? I don't know. And then Letty, she's just gung-ho trying to find out what's going on, and because she died. So I don't know where that's going to go, because sometimes it feels like she's not thinking before she acts. And if you're not thinking before you act, I need you to think, honey. I need you to be like, maybe I shouldn't take the lead on this. Maybe I should access the fact that these are my emotions making me do this, and not, just think a little bit harder before I make these decisions. I don't know, but this was a really good episode. Like I said, we got Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, we got James and the Giant Peach. That whole scene was from James and the Giant Peach. I don't care what nobody fucking says. So apparently somebody, the director, the producer, somebody likes James and the Giant Peach, unless it's from some other shit that I haven't heard of before, or they didn't make it up though. That whole scene, the walking into the dining area with all the skeletons, the skeleton holding the scroll, that was James and the fucking Giant Peach. And I am here for that, because that is one of my favorite movies. And I feel like the skeleton in that movie looks like dude from Nightmare Before Christmas, and I always felt that way. And I was just like, is the same people make that movie? Like, is the same producer? It's not, James and the Giant Peach isn't a Tim Burton movie, but maybe like somebody that studied under him. Because I know like the dude that made Coraline studied under Tim Burton or some shit like that, or worked for him or whatever. I don't know, I'm going on a tangent, but let me know what you think about this episode. It was really good. I liked it, and I'd love to hear your comments and questions and what you think. And please like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Later days.